Yo, what is up, all my Patreon supporters and subscribers? I'm going to be talking to you guys about making dubstep gun basses, those crazy layered basses you hear a lot of my songs and stuff. I kind of do it everywhere in my music, so I'll go ahead and play a few examples first, and we'll get right into making them. Yeah, the list goes on and on. And so I want to start by saying this is a pretty simple process and technique. I think that a lot of people, whenever they make these kind of basses, they tend to overcomplicate the process and kind of add too much or try to think too much about the sounds. I know personally I used to do that a lot. And so I want to go ahead and say that this is pretty simple. I think a lot of you guys can do this easily and make some crazy guns. So the most important part about the gun sounds, in my opinion, is the sub. I like to start by making a nice punchy sub to make the gun stand out and give that gun a nice big boomy bass. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these tracks real fast. In Serum, I make my subs for the guns because I find it's just the easiest synth to do that. I start out with two sine waves, or actually just one sine wave and oscillator 1, just like the kick kind of, and then one in oscillator B. Although in oscillator B, I like to add third and fifth harmonics because those harmonics really make the sub stand out more and give a boomier sound on like phone speakers or laptop speakers, because there's those two extra harmonics playing with your ears to make it sound like the sub is still there, but it just makes it more full and round kind of thing. Once you have these two sine waves or harmonics, these three harmonics, turn the random down and turn the phase to 0 on both of them so that they both start at 0 and they sound nice and there's no weird phasing happening. It's going to sound like this. This is without the oscillator B, and this is with oscillator B. Already sounds much more fuller. And then in the Serum effects section, I go ahead and add distortion, just a little bit though. Just to kind of glue the sound together. After this, it's a pretty straightforward process of going to envelope 2, making this super short and punchy, like 100 and something milliseconds, and then mapping it to global pitch. And so it's kind of a kick sound almost. And then I go ahead and add Ableton distortion, which is the saturator. So now it's super punchy, super loud, and then after that I kind of just make a nice pattern. Let's go and make a pattern real fast. There's the nice sub pattern I just made. Here's what it sounds like. Nothing too crazy. You can, if you want to add, if you want to add a bit of like a tail to the sub, which I usually do, I add a bit of release on the oscillator envelope 1. Sounds like this. Sounds pretty neat. And then literally all I do for most of the sounds, the gun basses usually, is just add a percussion sound, like legitimately. And so I'm gonna go ahead and find a percussion sound real fast. Let's go ahead and do like anything that sounds cool or like weird. I'll go ahead and put that as a percussion layer. So I'll put it into a sampler or simpler, and I'll go ahead and make this MIDI on C3 so it plays back at the regular pitch. Turn up a bit. make sure it's in key too. That's kind of the important process, or important part. And move this back down to D0. To add more variation, I'm gonna go ahead and pitch this up like 1 semitone. It's gonna sound sick, trust me. So there's one layer, but I don't like to start. I don't like to stop at one layer. I like to kind of add until it sounds crazy and full. A good technique for gun basses is to actually use like gun sounds, because it just makes the transient stand out and make it sharper and more gun sounding like. So I'm gonna go ahead in my sound effects folder and find a gun transient or something real fast. This one sounds pretty nice. Sounds pretty gun sounding like, of course. And legit, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the very transient of this, but I think I might go with this part. Yeah, this transient, because there's this weird space right there. This sounds cool by itself, but it's not enough for a gun sound. This is the meat. And I will make this really short so that only the transient sticks out. And so I usually like to do this in audio because I don't know, I just prefer working in audio most of the time. Makes making gun basses a lot easier, I think, and more. You can kind of see what you're doing. Here's what it sounds like now with the gun layer. Next step is I'm gonna make this sound louder and process it a bit more, sound cooler. So I like to use M-Convolution Easy a ton because it can add some nice weird qualities to sounds, especially if you use like percussion sounds as a convolution impulse. So let's go ahead and find a percussion sound to use. Let's do this bongo. That actually sounds kind of weird. I like that. I might keep that for later. I'm going to resample that. Sounds cool. Time for more processing. So I'm going to use the fat rack again. Put it on there. And this is the fun part about using samples for layers on gun basses. You can kind of tweak them so much, and people are like, oh, how did you make that weird sound in Serum? And it's like, oh, I didn't make it in Serum, I used a percussion sound. And so it's kind of, you get these unique timbres and new sounds that you wouldn't really expect with like synths and stuff. The gun sound. I think this is not doing it for me anymore, and so we're gonna go back to more sound effects and find more guns to use. These are some crazy guns. Let's go ahead and use this one. See what it sounds like. Making these basses all trial and error. I can spend hours making like one bass for a song, just getting it to sound right or sound cool. It just takes time, but process is fun. You get to tweak a lot of cool sounds, get new results and random things. What does this sound like? Nah, we'll use this bit right here. Sounds much meatier than the other transient, I think. Yeah, nice. A cool trick I like to do when I'm working with the layers on guns and stuff is just individual layers. You can add a bit of flair to them. And so let's say I want this layer to kind of have a bit of thing before this happens. So what does it sound like? You can just add that kind of crazy flair and get some neat results that make people go, whoa, it sounds crazy. Now I'm going to use this sound to make a weird layer, or at least attempt to. Let's try this one out real fast. See what this sounds like. A cool technique, if you have sounds that have a lot of variation, is just to use that first one shot of it and then just use that as the sound. So it kind of sounds the same. It's like if you have a bass that is out of phase or it has weird phases that keep changing on every note, you can just use one note of that and just repeat it and it'll sound the same and it'll sound clean and nice. That's why I like working in audios, because you can kind of see what you're working with. Yes. I'll go ahead and grab OTT, put it on there. No, I'll use multiband compression. Yes, this is the fun part. This is so much fun. Yeah, and this is kind of the entire process of making gun basses. It just takes a bit of time, a bit of effort, and a bit of creativity to determine layers. And of course you can synthesize layers. I like to make laser sounds for layers, and so I'll go ahead and make one in Razor. I'm sure a lot of you guys have used Razor before, or heard about it because of Voltra. Voltra has bay bonds. That's why they use Razor. A cool trick I learned from an AU5 video is to increase the amount of partials to make the sounds a bit higher quality. And so I'm going to do that real fast, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. First, I'm going to initialize the preset in Razor. This is pretty easy to do. You just click on this edit button right here. If you have the Reactor player, you can't edit the patches, but you can. But if you have the Reactor, full Reactor, you can edit patches and stuff and make your own. And so once inside Razor Ensemble, you click on Razor and click on Synth, and then it looks like a crazy mess. My goodness. You find this thing over here called Synth. Click on that. Click on Parameters. And wait, oops. Click on, what's it called? The Sign Bank, yeah. And on each of these, go up here, click on this check mark here, and change this to I don't know, let's do 1200 partials for each of these. The partials are basically the sine waves, and so with additive synthesis, each sine wave is a multiple of 2, and they all stack up to make a sound. It's kind of crazy to explain. I'm not going to explain it right now. But let's go to parameters, and then this thing right here that says PAIDX loop. Click on that and change this 320 to 1200, or however many partials you added before. Once that's done, you're going to notice it's going to sound a lot better when played lower notes. And so let's make a laser in Reactor. Let's go and do that real fast. Or in Razor. Let's make a laser. I'm going to copy this loop right here, or one of these loops actually, And so first thing about lasers is the pitch bend. Let's go ahead and make using these envelopes to add pitch bend. Let's do envelope 2. The fun thing about spectral synthesis is you can do really weird things with this dissonance effect operator kind of thing. I'm going to mess with this and see if I can get any cool results real fast. And I'm just going to map everything to envelope 2 and modulate this weird sound. That sounds sick. I'm going to reuse that too. I do this a lot. I kind of just add layers, and I have all these sounds and I have all these things to work with. And so if you run into a cool accident or a cool sound, save it, because you can use it later for something else. Let's go ahead and do metal. Let's do envelope 2. Sounds pretty cool. And now let's add the fat rack again and make the process. Actually, no, I'm not gonna use the fat rack this time. I'm gonna do it by hand because I think that might be too much. Sometimes the fat rack is too much for a sound. You gotta just do it by hand. Reverb synthesizer, whatever. I don't know what this is, but it's just like it adds a nice space to the sound. One of my all-time favorite ways of making a sound super loud is by using this plugin called Camel Fat. Now you can't buy this anymore, but you can find cracks of it online. I know I'm such a bad person, I'm telling you guys to go crack a plugin, but that's kind of the only way you can get this plugin. That's a crazy flow right there. All you gotta do is add drums to that, and you got a crazy dubstep song. Let's add the fat rack anyways, because it might sound better. Crazy sound right there. Let's go ahead and freeze that out and turn it into audio, because with spectral stuff there's often sometimes some latency or some kind of underlying factor that might make this sound different. See right here, it's not sample accurate, and there's this bit of thing before it actually the laser hits, and so I like to get rid of that and move it to a perfect location so everything's nicely on time. And from there it's just a matter of repeating that same pattern again. There we go. Let's add one more layer to this to make it final and complete. I'm just gonna copy and paste this over and replace the sound in here with something else. Next step is to just group all of this and EQ this maybe, and just go ahead and mix everything in nicely. I like to do a lot of mid-side EQ, just because it can help with the phases of the sound, and I don't know, it just makes it sound better. The stereo field, at least, you can get some cool properties going on. Just like before, I'm gonna put the camel fat back on that, make it loud, clear preset. This sound needs some work. Let's go ahead and chop that in there. of warp everything real fast. Pitch it up some more. See what it sounds like. Yes, yes, give that all to me. That sounds crazy. Resample that into audio, and then we got ourselves another crazy sound on the line right there. Nice, nice. What does this sound like now? There's basically like your dubstep loop right there, and then we can just go ahead and add drums from that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add ourselves some of the Patreon drums. A cool trick to make your snares kind of crazier and louder is to just add a glue compressor and legitimately just take the glue compressor, turn the threshold down a bit and the makeup up, and that's it. And it sounds already snappier and crazier. Transient at least does. And that's pretty much how I go about making my gun basses and gun loops and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of start with this idea and a pattern in mind, and I kind of just shape the sound from there, from basic percussion sounds or synths. I hope this video helped you out a bit to learn something new. And so if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you answer those questions or answer them for you and stuff. So thank you guys so much. Peace.